Alright, now that you tried yourself, I'm going to explain more based on the scaffold we already generated. Okay, so what we learned today is RSpec stuff, and here's the repository. Now when we generate a scaffold, you know that I have the, what I did earlier was generating a scaffold for, why is it not here? It was generate scaffold for post. What are the fields? Title and body. Yeah. And when you do this scaffold, what are the generators that I get? I get a model generator, controller generator, also view, and RSpec added itself to this. That's why it works. Now, and it's what we have is this post controller, and by now you know very well that the post is plural, and you know that the routes should automatically have this thing, right? And we have an empty model. There's nothing in there. But so after we generate, we may want to put something like, validate. What's that? Name or no, title? Present true. Okay. Is it validate or validates? Looks good, right? Now when I run the server, so I run the server outside here. I migrate it and I run the server. Normally, before we learn testing, we have localhost 3000 here. Now you see that we have not defined a root page, right? So it's still there, but we can go to the post directly. This is the CSS from the scaffolds.css file. You can see it under app, assets, style sheets, scaffolds, right? It's not that pretty. Right now, your application.css is including everyone, right? But what I want you to do normally is to rename this file to SCSS and don't use the syntax, use the import syntax.
What is the require? What's the import?
Yeah, so require here is the syntax by Rails sprocket. So it's processing this file. So what with JavaScript you can keep it. It's like this. But with CSS, don't use the Rails way, use the Sass way, SCSS. Okay? Now this one is a little ugly, right? But it has all the features we need. You can see that I added a validation and everything works great. And it even knows how to highlight this. So there's a lot you can learn from the scaffold. For example, what can we learn from this page so far? First, we look at the new form, right? And you see that it's using a form partial for both a new post and an existing post. So let's review a little bit. So this is my hello post. When I click on create post, it will submit to post controller what action? Create action. Now when I click edit, it's the same form. But then when I click here, what action does it get to? The update action. And you see that the edit page looks almost the same, right? And the idea here is that they have a form partial. Now Rails 5 comes with form width. They're trying to force us to use form width, and then we forget about form for and form tag. It's not that much different. So just know that when you see this, you just look up the. It's just trying to force you to be very clear whether you have a model or not. We use form for when we have a model, right? And we use form tag when we don't care with what the part in the front is. You just get params password, params email instead of params user password, params user email. Okay, so form 4 looks very similar to form with the exception that if you use form 4, this will look like this. Okay? Yeah? And then of course local is always a default. You can say if remote is true, then this is an Ajax form. But we haven't learned that yet. So you see that now when you read the scaffolded code, you can understand it. Everything in here you can understand. You can see the errors here, you can display. Everything in here doesn't look very bad, right? Although see how clever this is, right? It just says form.submit. It creates a submit button. But the text for the submit button, it depends on the object. It say update post here, or it say create post. Do you guys understand that bit?
Yeah.
So Rails has a bit of a magic there. Yeah?
Actually, we were looking at the files that were generated earlier, and there were a bunch of like JSON stuff in the controller that was kind of.
Yeah. Now that is covered next week, but we could mention this week too, because it's not I think not bad. It's quite easy to understand. By the way, before this, I just want to mention if you use one argument, then everything over here will just be that button. It's no longer automatic. It will just always submit. So that's the only difference. Now, if you want to use the Boomar way, then you say class button, right? Like that. And of course, if you want it to be an automatic naming button, then you just say just don't pass anything for the first argument.
So the form submitted will make it automatic.
Yeah. So when you don't pass anything, it's like passing a nil guy. Then it automatically decides the text for the button. If you give it a text, then it will use that text.
And it's just for that
If
one
you want
set.
to use the class after that, then you put nil here, just to say that, hey, can you decide for me? I don't want to decide it. And it understands that because it will look at this form 4 post and then it will check whether this one is an existing object or a new object. Has been saved or not. Alright? So what next is the only thing you guys don't know is what Oscar pointed out. In post controller, you see it's quite similar. In post controller, this part is all easy, right? Notice how edit doesn't have anything. Does anyone know why? Yeah, so take a look at the edit page, alright? It's using this though. You see this at post? Why is it nothing here?
Because it's passing the URL, the ID.
Where it should get the post here. What you normally see is post.find params ID here, no?
Right, but it's using the RESTful route to find it.
Yeah. You need this, no? Does anyone know why?
Because you said that.
So if you guys see this line, it says that all these actions are doing the same thing. You need to load the post from the params. So when it says before action, it means before this show thing, it's like calling set post there, set post here, etc. Down the same way. And what is set post? Let's look at it. There you go. So it's just a sharing a common setup code. So you learn so much from scaffolded code here. So you don't just generate a scaffold and then look at it and you can really understand the whole flow. Now I do not like this. I don't recommend this at all. I rather delete this line and I can go in here, I write set post myself. Then it's very clear if you go into my action, you can see that when you destroy here, it says set post. Then you can see what am I doing, right? Imagine that the other style, the Rails generated way, using before actions, you you suddenly you look at this like, where is it at post from? And then you're like, go look at this before action. But after 1 year, you end up with something like this. And then this will be like, oh, check, if post is, new, require, permission on post, and people abuse this and can create a bunch of chain. Not just that, they do this. Oh, only for action, show and edit. Oh, actually accept action, destroy and new. And by this time, you basically hate yourself. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have to go and draw a diagram now. You don't want this. Why not just write the damn word down here, set post, or check if post is new. This is as simple as that. You see, simple is sometimes better. And of course, because of all these dangers, your test can help you. Your test will help you, because otherwise your friend may be like adding one extra check permission, check admin, right? And then forget to do only or accept. And then you just check everything, and then your app breaks and you have no idea. So your test should have caught that. Okay? So it's cool just to know that this is the Rails generated code up here, right? But know the limitation for a small app. This is fine. So the only thing now is this, guys. Do you understand this bit if it's just HTML? Yeah? It means this, right? Normally, you always have HTML code. So normally you see this and that's it. Okay? Just that. If it's saved, then it's finished. If not, render new. That's it. This is the code you normally write. Of course, you don't have this respond to. That's it. Okay? So the difference here is that sometimes if you're using an API from their mobile app, or you build a React or Angular app on the web, you want to talk to the Rails backend as API. You're not using HTML. You're going to use the JSON format. So it's very clean. It looks like this. Here's the post. Here's the push HTML version. Where's the index version? Oh, this is even better. It's just automatic. Wow. I can't believe that. Does it work? Yeah. So this is the same as this. Respond to do format. Format is here is just a variable. It's a block. Respond to is a block. Okay. If its format is HTML, then you just render the index file, right? Index view. Because this render is obvious, so you don't do anything. Yeah? And then if the format is JSON, then you also say render something. But in this case, post is obvious, but yeah, Rails is a lot of magic there. So you actually render JSON post. And it automatically will run this for you. I give you an example. If I render here is A, B, C. Okay? And you will see this render back. And if you have ever built a mobile app, you know what I mean. This is the nice part.
So this is we use a web and render it to the JSON.
Yeah, so your mobile app, or if you build a client, just the front end part, you visit this URL, and then you can get the JSON. It's similar. Last time we learned this ourselves. Random user API here. This is what they did, right? So we use our Ruby code, the HTTP gem, http.get, get the data from here, pass the JSON. It's a lot easier to read than the HTML version, and it's a lot smaller. Now, so this is the secret. For index, you tend to do this. If you build the JSON support yourself, you just need to do this. But apparently, the latest Rails, they make it automatic. So this is now automatically set. It's quite interesting. Yeah, the generated code used to contain this bits of code, but it doesn't. It used to contain this, but it doesn't have it anymore. Now, some pages it doesn't make sense, as you can see here. There's no JSON because this is just a page as the URL for you to submit the data, right? For JSON, you don't need this. JSON, you just send a post request with data. So from your app, let's say you get the user to enter the email and password. Say here, just say you build an iPhone app. So from the iPhone, you send username and password in the params, and this guy will receive the data. When it receives the data, if you send it, it just run the JSON bit of code. Now don't worry, this I'm not going to the specific yet, so it's just because you asked what JSON is doing, I just mentioned.
Just if it's related to a Ruby class, so JSON.
Come again?
If it's related to a Ruby class, like the user,
Yeah, if it's a Ruby class, it will understand how to render it. It's converting an object into a JSON string. Normally for HTML page, you're converting an object into some HTML. You know, sometimes it look like a flash alert. Sometimes it look like this. You know, different HTML presentation. But JSON is more just about the structure of the data. So you don't have to worry much about this one. You can see that if it fails, I return the errors into the JSON. And if it succeeded, then I just say it works. This is when you work on Ajax and mobile app, it's useful. But at this stage right now, some of you don't care about it, that's fine. Okay? So beside the format.json and ignore the respond to line, everything looks fine. Okay, that's it. That's pretty simple. Let's look at some of the views. And by now, yeah, some of these views you see that's quite clean. There's nothing crazy in here. There is the, now I understand. Unfortunately, the way Rails does it is that they use JBuilder. So actually in your post controller, when you run index here, if it's a JSON format, it will look for the index.json file instead of index.html file. And in here, there's a logic that say converting this post into an array. It's quite useful if you use JBuilder, but normally there are more popular ways. JBuilder is included by default by Basecamp. So in here, it's a bit more work and stuff for you to see, but JSON Builder is using a partial. It's say, hey, render a list of posts for me. You see here, post. It will run the index.json.jbuilder. And that will say, hey, render an array. Okay, this is an array. And how many posts do I have? Okay, so this is one post. But in each array, I'm going to render this post. And then what is inside the post? You will have the post here, and it say, hey, take a post. Just get these values out. And return it to people. So sometimes if you have, if you want this to be a secret, you don't want to tell the user when a post was created or updated. You save it here, and then you run this. The user only see this much. This is important. A lot of the time, you don't want to show everything in the database. The user should only see this much. Right? Depending on the permission of the user. So. Okay, so that's so far you see that you can learn a little bit from scaffolded code. Now, and all these links will work, right? You click on all of this, all of them work. Click on destroy. So let's understand this a little bit more. Are you sure? If you want this behavior in your app, does anyone know how to do it yet? It's quite interesting. So it's under first now post index, right? Here it is, destroy. It's a link. And there's a data confirm. It's like you use it for tag and stuff. When you use data confirm like this, Rails provide the JavaScript that will check your link. When you click on it, it will display the alert for you. So this is very nice when you want to check the user before they do something a little dangerous. Are you sure to remove monster as a friend? You know, life will be better. Are you sure? No. You will have more food to eat. Are you sure? So, of course, this is a very boring JavaScript alert, and but initially this is very useful. Each browser implements this alert differently. It's just called the JavaScript function alert. All right. So sometimes you might want to set up a different jQuery or a different extension that make it nice. Method delete here is another piece of magic. Now Rails will use JavaScript to convert the link that you click on into a delete HTTP delete action. It's a delete request. You have a get request and a post request. A delete request is similar to a post request. It's going to make some change. Except post, you use it to create something. Delete, you use it to destroy something. So naturally, because of that, it goes to the post controller action over delete action here. Yeah, makes sense. And of course, all of these guys is supported by this one line of code, right? And of course, all those one line of code, you can double check here one more time. 7 actions. Delete is over here, right? So when you say post path, put an ID in it, it will go to here, but you see that if you do a get, it will go to the show action. If you do a put or a patch, it will go to an update action. If you delete, it will go to the destroy action. Why am I explaining all this scaffolded stuff? We needed to understand it, and now we're going to see if we don't use the browser, can we test it? Right? Can we test without touching the browser? If you can do that, you can actually write test-driven development. Imagine I could actually write this whole website so far without using the browser at all, and I know it works. That would be pretty cool.
I have a question on this when we were testing on.
Mm.
Which I take a small test, a small step.
Yeah.
For a test development, we don't need the browser and write a series of tests at the same time.
Yeah. You just do many small tests. Don't write big tests, right? Now, of course, that requires skills and experience. But with practice, we can get better each time. So forget about all this browser stuff. I don't need that anymore. You know how it works. That's a scaffolded experience. I'm going to look at the test, okay? So I'm going to go and here and add everything, and I say here, this is git commit message, right? I just type properly here. Or don't forget, you can write over here. Will be add, right? Scaffolded for post. Okay, done. Whew, let's run the test. The spec folder, right? And of course, that's a default. All right, so let's just start looking at the test and try to solve some of the errors. I think I messed up a few things. Normally, it shouldn't crash yet, so let's see what's going on. This is the format that you see the most. A green dot means, a green dot means what? What does it mean? A green dot? Just guess. This is one test, but it passes. Right? When a test fails, it's an F. Right? And when it's not implemented, it's a star. Okay? They make tests as fun as possible so we can become better developer, really. Like when Rails RSpec came out, the whole world kind of really love it. The default unit testing framework is all no color, it's ugly. But now, if you go into the Node.js system, you use React Native, you use React, or other frameworks. They all have beautiful colors like this, and it's all they kind of learn from these guys. So it's quite amazing how this really inspired many other frameworks. Okay, so let's look at the test failure. Okay, I have two failures. I'm gonna try to fix them first. The first failure, post create should create a new post. Interesting. This test failed because I added a validation. Do you guys remember?
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure my test now works. So this is similar to what Ian asked. What happens, my test was working and I add something and it fails. So the question you always ask is, should I fix my test or should I fix my code? In this case, is it clear we should fix the test, right? Well, actually don't know. We may have to fix controller, post controller, but we know that the scaffold worked earlier when you create a post without a title, it would fail. So I'm gonna fix the test. So go into the spec controller. I'm going to read this part, right? You see, this is the line where it fails, but this is the line where the test fails, right? The test will run this line, and that's why it fails. And I am going to try and read a little bit more, see if there's any extra data I can get. Okay, that's it. I think these two are good enough. So line 79. 79 down here. Why is it failing, right? So it say, instead of the word test that you saw in the Rails test, default test framework last week, this week in RSpec we always use it. Okay, in each block is one test. In one test you can have many assertions, but instead of assertions we use the word expect because that read more like English. So you see the word describe and context. They're very similar. They're just grouping your tests so it's easier to read. Context here is just like explaining, right? Hey, I'm grouping all my tests in this valid params. So far, so good. Let's read the one that failed. This one say, if I create a post, this is a controller test. I'm sending a post request, okay? A post request to the create action with the following param. So let's say it's like you submitting a param, a form, and I'm in the current session. So you can say this session, the current user is, the login user is someone else. Right now, don't worry. There's nothing here you have to worry about. Okay, I don't care about the session. I can even remove it. What it's failing is somehow one of these is failing. So I'm going to test by going very specifically into controller, post, controller spec, run it. Alright, let's really try to see what's going on. Why is it failing? Unknown format.
Was expected yellow color and was black.
Huh?
Was expected yellow color and black color.
Yeah, so this is good point. So right now this is not smart enough. Expect can take one argument like this, or it can take a block. This is a block. A block means the code you can run. A method, here it just runs as a method. So it's like that each method, right? This take a block, but sometimes it can also take this, but we don't normally use it. If you use it, you see this thing that I normally use, this like the map. So either you can do that, right? This is a block, whereas this is just a one argument. Just some Ruby stuff. Now I still don't understand why this fails, guys. What's going on? Unknown format? Did I mess up the controller? Let's go to controller create action line 29. Oh, I deleted it by mistake. Right, so this will be format.html. You see how useful my test is. I accidentally, right, was trying to show off to you guys, oh, you don't have this, you don't need this, and I start deleting stuff, and then later I'm like, okay, I totally forgot to basically put it back. Right, don't make fun of me. Alright, so I'm gonna run this right now and see if we get lucky and everything is syntactically correct. Now you see some of this is a yellow color. Yellow means opportunities to write these tests, right? Wait, yes, start from here, okay? Don't look at the red ones anymore. Red is now the past. So you can see the specific line where the spec is. So we can fix the code. What line is it, Ian? What line is this test I'm gonna implement? What line of code is it? 90. So you could type control, I don't know, how do you go to a line? Whoa, there's a go live button. What the hell? What is this? It's just on a live server. I thought just like go live somewhere. I think control L, command L for you guys. But let's say I go to line 90. That's not good. That's where the spec is. Okay, line 90. All right, let's read this test. So it's going to test that if you submit a post with some invalid information. So let's say if you don't put a title, invalid, all right? So the invalid attributes here. When you see this, you don't get too worried. This variable is gonna appear somewhere up there, so you find it. It's up here, okay? Now the word let, okay, that's a bit tricky, but pretend that it's the same as this. And it just returns some value and you can use that method, okay? But it's just a variable. Just understand that it's, okay, I'm declaring a variable using let. So I need to give it a hash. A hash to submit, to try to create a post with. The word skip, if you have the word skip anywhere in your test, it will just skip it entirely for that test and it will return yellow. This is very nice because you can come back later and run it and fix it. So in this case, the generator gives us a very good setup for us to practice writing a test. So in valid attributes, by now you know what an attribute is, right? Like, you know, when you create a user, you create a post, you need attributes. So I'm going to give it some invalid attribute. Ian, you want to try? Well, you should still give it some structure, you know? Right? Whatever it is, it should be a hash. Otherwise, it just crashes. Now, you can just give it an empty hash. It means the user submit with nothing. Okay? So now this invalid attributes is run down there. Yes? Yeah? Yes, so invalid, because it's invalid, so you can just not give it anything. Okay? You can give it a title, but then this will be valid already, you know? Yeah, so it's quite interesting. So up here is valid, and this is invalid. So invalid, I'll just return nothing. Okay? Let's run. Alright, so now I look at line 120. I need to know what test it's running. So someone send, now this is when you're trying to update, a post. You hit the update button, but you don't have the title and you don't have the body. Interestingly, I think this is what Fu just said. It makes sense. When you go to the controller, you go into update action. Where's update action? And here it will check for post params. It means what you submit will go through this post. This params permit stuff. Here, permit stuff. So, what is it saying? Param is missing. The value is empty. Interesting. Post, it's submitting this already, no? Why is it complaining?
I think we did it before with nil.
Yeah.
And that, oh no, I think because the fields still need to be submitted, right?
Yeah, so the
no value.
fields. So for example, here you submit like title like this.
Title nil, and that works.
Yeah, so it's submitted from a form, it's like this. So I guess, like Fu said, maybe to really have like invalid attribute, let's just give it the attributes, but yeah, this is not correct, right? This is like an invalid post. So then I'm going to run it. When you submit from a form, it always gives you these keys and values anyway. And the final one, I'm going to fix this one, line 123. When it's testing the update action, when you give it valid params, but in this case, new attributes. Oh, so when you update a post with a new title, a new body, alright, it's checking that the post will work. So I'm gonna go and fix my skip statement here. So when you post a new thing, let's say updated title, body is updated body. Let's see if someone submit that form, it will work as updated title and updated body. Right? Ignore the session for now. This is good for, again, you store the slash and a flash and you store the user, current user. So it should have updated the post, but because it updates, it was saved to the database. So then you say, hey, reload from the database for me, because the post object here doesn't know that you changed the database. And now we have to check. Could anyone give it a try? How can I make this pass? Oscar and Stan, did you try it?
Yeah. Well, we asserted that post
Expect
expect
post
yeah.
dot.
And now just post. Okay. We did expect post like to be valid.
Oh, you just expect it to be valid. I really want to make sure that you updated the post title the way that you meant to do it. So how do I do that? To equal.
Updated.
Exactly. Now you can do the same thing for body. To equal.
Updated.
Exactly. So now, if I run this, it probably will pass right away, and I don't like that. I like to make it fail first. I want to see that it complains. Uh-oh, that's not good. I removed this skip thing. Alright? Now you see that it's expecting this, but it got this. But this is exactly what I want. Then I will change the title here. Updated title is what the user just submitted. And this is post body. I will run that. This is the updated body. See, then I feel very confident that I just tested the controller how to update a post. How do you test it? when you do it on the website.
Click the launch.
Open localhost. Here, you're going to load post. What we have done so far is this, guys. We just make a test that does not create an object if you don't give the title. It should create an object if there's a valid title. We also did, can you change this to update the title? And this is updated body. When you hit that, it will become updated title and updated body. We're making sure the app works by writing this test code. Now the beautiful thing is, next time your friend or someone or you yourself 5 days later, 2 years later, you make changes here, who has the time to go to all these places and press enter and enter, try each form like this? You actually just want to run RSpec and make sure that everything runs as you want. There's a lot of learning we can do it here. For example, that format, HTML. Now I'm going to save it to the output file in the temp folder so I don't have to check it into Git. The temp folder is ignored. So I'm going to run it. This will run all our tests so far, right? In a very easy to view format. It's a little colorful, but you can see that, okay, I have quite a lot of tests, right? In this spec, an example is just a vocabulary. In general, these are the spec, and example is a specific test. It's something. So now you see, you're testing that if someone go to /post, it should be successful, right? It's a page that exists and should render the index.html.erb. You can start reading this. Oh, when someone create a post, right? If the params are valid, it means you have the title. It's not empty. And some body maybe. Then you create a post, but after you create also, it can redirect the page. It's very clear. If you read this, right, you have an idea of what the app is doing. So the tests themselves help document the code. It's cool, right? Now, for example, let's look at other types of tests. Let's look at the route one. They're quite useless, but they're quite easy to write. Look at this. Who cannot write this test? This is so easy. The route test will be like, oh, expect that if someone goes to /post, it should route to post index. But practicing how to write these tests help you become a better programmer, right? You're just practicing, you're just warming up, building a reflex here. But sometimes this is useful. You'll be like, oh, I need to create a routes page for my sign up page. You can write this like, routes from here, describe. Of course, you don't put in this file. You put in the sign up spec, .rb. Let's say sign up. User authentication do. Right? And you want the, our boss or our project manager want some URL to look like this. If someone go to sign up, it should work. So what do you think the route should be?
Colon in front of get.
It's the same. This is the old way, and this is the symbol way, right? Now, where do you think this should go to? User what? It's a get, man. See? So now you do this, and then your route will have to behave so that the test will pass. But this is a very good test to add, because later on people might change like, oh, create account, or accounts new and all this bullshit. But hey, look, I have a test here to make sure this is what the client wants. So for another example, obviously you have to put it in the test. So here in the it block, so you say it, you know, handles, for example, sign up, right? Route. That's one test. Here it handles login. Okay. So now you check with the client even before you write any code, right? You just gonna check, hey, what do you want? Do you want sign in or do you want login? Or do you want both? It's okay. You want both? No problem. When you go to login, where should we go, guys? And then you're like, you guys want both? Not a problem. I just make sure I'll support this, right? And right now, if you run this test, it will fail. But if you go to the route, you define it, it will pass. So fail first, pass after. That's nice. I'm not gonna go into these ones. All right, I'm going to go to the model next. Let's see. We fixed here. We fixed some tests here, which is very proud. We say git commit. Actually, just use it over here. Fix controller test. All right. And because we're writing tests so much this week, I introduced what is called guard RSpec for you guys. Right? Windows computer could be a little tricky. So, what is guard RSpec? Guard is a library that checks your files in the Rails project. If any files get changed, it will trigger some action. So it's quite nice if you have guard for a lot of things. In this case, if you save a file, it will run the test for that file. I'm going to try it right now. Bundle exec guard init. Did I do guard aspect? So check this out. I have a new guard file. I'm going to show you the content of the guard file, but you don't have to understand it. You really rarely have to modify it, but it's quite cool. There's a rule here that say every time some file changes in here, you will run bundle exec RSpec. Okay, so you can understand it already. However, it's more specific. It say this: if you check for the file, basically, if you check, if you update some file in the view directory, it will run the features test. It will run the views test. It knows exactly what files to run. It doesn't run the whole thing. So that's all it is.
So if you update code in the views, you said?
Yeah, it will run either the views test and the integration feature test. All right, for model, I just run the model test. So check this out. I have now bundle exec guard. When you run this, it will load the guard file, and now it's ready. You don't have to do anything down here. I wish that Visual Studio Code one day will allow us to have this terminal window to be on the right hand side. It will be a lot easier to write. For now, we'll just keep it at the bottom. I'm going to the post spec. Can someone help me write some tests together? You guys did this with your Trello board, right? Give me a test. I want to unit test my post model. Milestone 1, you see this? In last week, you also see this. Could someone volunteer how to write a model test here? First, I save this file. You see that I just press Command S. Automatically, it runs and say there's no test, not yet implemented. It looks yellow and it's nice. In Rails test, the default framework, it's just red. It doesn't look nice. All right, I'm going to delete this. So there are no tests. Run it again. Look, no test. Everything looks normal. Don't underestimate this. Do one thing at a time. Make sure things work. Don't do 10 things. Right? Make sure it still works. All right. How do you run a test? It's like this. All right. It can create like that. So I'll just say it creates a post successfully. Is that okay? How do I test that? Post dot create title hello world. Now once again, I expect you guys to understand this syntax. Post class create action. This is the attribute. You can have more than one attribute. And this should be, in Ruby, it's actually a hash, but it's optional. So this sign is optional. Alright? And this is actually a hash inside an argument like this. So this is the full version. This is the clean version, the English version. Next. How do I test and make sure it works? Expect. The syntax is always expect something equal something. That is your test. Alright? Huh? So save this guy to a variable. Alright? And then expect post. It's already saved. So you can say is it valid or not to equal true. Is that okay? Now it passes. Right? However, this true and false thing is not really nice, because when you get this and it fails, look, expected true got false. That's not a very useful test. That's why, watch this carefully. For any of this Boolean method, this is a bit crazy, so read that. You can actually expect post to be, and it will call this method for you like this. This is because Ruby is too much magic. It will join this into this word and remove the question mark. So this is the test that you normally see. Right? And then it works. Now you see, if I don't put any title in here and I save it, expect this to be valid but got errors. Do you guys see that the error message is a lot clearer?
It's also bringing out the post number.
Yeah, in this case it does. That's, yeah. It expect, because the valid, be valid thing is already very common. So it's even displaying the errors for you. Okay? So for example, if a post here, for example here, I have a method called def public. You know, a post, is it published or not? You have this, right? Is it a draft or so let's say this is by default. It's always false, right? A new post should always not be published. I don't have a column, I just make up. I just have, this is like marking, right? Stubbing. So now I say a post should be is not published by default. So I say post.new, and I could do expect post.published to equal false, and it will pass, right? Of course, it fails its first test, so let's just put it back and make that pass. And the second one will pass, but sometimes I want to make sure I can make it fail. Alright, what if I do this? Once again, the error message is useless. So I don't like that, so I convert the Boolean here. It's your call, okay? So to be like this, to be published. And this guy will look at this method and say, oh, is there a publish question mark method? Now, if you come from another world, you probably hate this. Just, it's a little bit too much. So, that's cool, right? It's checking this publish method. Expected this publish to be true but got false. But your error message is very clear. Your code reads very clear English, except we have no idea. A lot of people have no idea how it works. But I just explained to you how it works. So hopefully, it's not one of the too many surprises. Yeah? Okay, let's write a little bit more. And here's when you start to see a lot of code. And you're like, okay, sometimes I want to really test the fact that it cannot create a post without title. Alright? And how do you do it? Post is post.new. Post.save here, you want this to fail, right? How do we write this test? How do we write this test? You try to save and then what? Expect. So you can even say, right? You can write many expect to equal false. No problem. I won't blame you, right? That's fine. Of course, you can already do the thing to be safe, but that one doesn't read like English, so this is fine. Then the second one, I want post errors on the title to equal something. This is the beauty of test driven. I don't even need to go to the model. I just need to see if the code is already good. So I run this and I say, oh God, cannot be blank. Alright, I think that makes sense. I'm gonna test can't be blank. Is that okay? Now some people ask, hey, I want my post to be like, a minimum length. Validate title, maybe length. Yeah? Minimum 5-10 characters. Do you guys see this? Right? It means now my test failed. Now it's up to you to decide what you're testing here. Do you want this to pass by typing is too short minimum? That's a lot of word to test, yeah? To write. But you could just write to include this. So the array of error messages should include the error message that I want. Once again, someone help. Why is it not passing? Line 4? Oh, the minimum length again, up here. Right? Alright. It should be enough, right? Oh my god, my minimum length is too long. Let's put it to 4 characters. Everything pass? Come on. Line 9.
Yeah, we want.
What's going on? Line 9. This one?
Yeah, because we don't want it to be published. We expect it to.
Oh, to not be published. So now you learn something to and to not be. Okay? Or you do not to be and it still work, and that's another crazy about thing about the Rails is that there's a lot of ways you can do it. But what have you learned? You learned this structure called expect something to something. Right? What you learn is that you expect it to equal something, or you expect it to be some method name. These are mostly the 2 things. But you also just learned that you can expect an array to include some element. Man, all of this reads like English, so it's a lot more fun to write. Okay? Any question at this point?
For all the frequent feature like this,
Uh-huh.
yeah, of course, many people write this.
Uh-huh.
So, is there any chance that we should learn from?
You can look at existing library, download a library you use, you see there's all this RSpec code. And you can learn from this scaffold stuff. Alright? And good question there. Because you did not, Ian did not do the Trello milestone yet. So let me very quickly point out the one lab that, this is the lab that we did. So this is one group, Oscar and Stan. There's a doc for each. So this is the model spec. When you look in it, into it, make sure it's the right version. And they give you examples. Alright? So this is a post. You can see that, oh, this guy, has a relationship comments, and it's checking that when you create the comments, the order of the comments, is loaded properly. It tends to give you not the easiest test case, but it's something a little bit harder, but it's not too hard, so you can learn from it. So you can read it and say, can I understand this? If it's too complicated, no problem. Find a simpler test case. You can ask in the class or find it somewhere. But otherwise, just treat it as like an extra exercise.
This is one case when I ask myself logging feature.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, many people write
Yeah, huh?
Yes, I don't know how many tests should I run for the user.
Yeah, so initially you should just write yourself to understand. But when you work on the real world app, even the login, log out, all of that is already taken care of for you, and all the tests are written for you. Just include a library. That is done. So stuff like login, all the apps already have it. People write beautiful tests for you already. Okay? And validation. People write that for you as well. So I don't have to go and write all this crazy validation. So I think there's a shoulda, let's say RSpec. So let me just check, yeah. Make tests easier on the fingers and the eyes. So it just like instead of creating an email and then test if the email is correct, this guy just allow you to write one line, and then it's actually run the test for you. So people, this is good and bad. This is just make life easier for you, but your code is including all this extra syntax. Like what the hell is this should word? You know, I was using the it word, and now there's a should word. It's getting a little bit. However, they do support RSpec, so I think let me check shooter RSpec. Come on, where's the RSpec one? Interesting. They change it. Convert RSpec to mini test. It's let's see. RSpec will be like this. This is an extra, and again, Ruby is so powerful that it does meta programming for all this DSL, domain specific language. You see this it here is like a method, except a block, right? This should here is a method, and then this is another method. All of these are the methods defined for you. You can just use it. So instead of writing a really long test like what I just did for this title thing, you can just do one line. Should validate presence of title. And you can make this work just like that. And if you can make it work just like, doing like that, that's just one line, right? And this line is possible if you use the gem. So for an app in production, you feel free to use this to save time. But for your homework and everything, don't do it. It gives you too many, it's not teaching you anything. Do it the way that I did, which is I can just do it in my sleep. Create a post, try to save, check the errors on the title, right? And check using the include way. So you can have more validations. I don't care about those validations. You can validate the body, right? But I'm just checking the title cannot be blank right now. Does that answer the question? Now, yeah, so the exercise here, let me take a step back and talk about RSpec. And I hope that by doing this milestone together, so some of you can go back and do this, and the other ones can continue with the next one. First, right, I'm using this board just to help us to think of the test. So encourage you to think of as many tests as you can. If you write tests immediately, sometimes you're like, oh, but I don't know how to write it and stuff. Feel free to think first of them first, and then later you drag them to the top. Only the ones you want to write. For example, maybe you mark the green color for the easy test and the yellow color for the harder one. I don't know. Or maybe green color for the test on the user model, and yellow is really up to you. But it's use your credit. In this case, I'm guessing, yeah, they use it, right? They test different logic, so they mark the model. It's entirely up to you, right? However, it's the practice that we brainstorm and we learn this way. So this page is very similar to your milestone 2, create a new app. and you learn from the scaffold and the RSpec test. I already did that. Let's think about when to test and why do we test. All right, can someone try and give me one reason each? Why do we write test in our code? We start with Ian.
So when test, make sure that you cover all the cases.
We cover, all ideal if possible. We cover the cases that our app is used. All right, and why do we need to cover the cases?
Because if the user, when he interact with the app, it makes something wrong,
Okay, so instead of waiting until someone tests our app, maybe we can write the test to help us check it. Quý, can you give me one reason why do we want to test the code that we write? Why do we use RSpec to test? Good. To make sure some method I write works the way I want. And that method can be used in a lot of places in my app. Yến, có muốn thử không? Tại sao phải test? Tại sao chúng ta nên viết test code trong code? Nếu như viết tay thì So Ian's saying that write test because if your code is wrong, it's true. But when do you run Rails console, you run the method and it's wrong, but it only tells you one time. You have to go to the Rails console again. But if you write test, then something that we will learn this week as well, when you push to GitHub, all the tests will run automatically, and there's a little check mark next to your commit. You actually see a cross if any of your tests fail. It's all automatic. It's like, wow, that's actually quite useful. If you push, and you're working with me, and you push and I see a cross next to your commit, I know that you actually broke the system. So you don't even have to run tests yourself. It's all automatic. And then GitHub will be like, okay, test pass. It can also deploy the Heroku automatic for you. So you never have to do git push Heroku master. You just git push Heroku, git push origin master. It run test, and after test pass, it run Heroku for you. That could be cool.
But if it doesn't pass, it doesn't.
And it doesn't deploy, right? Why do we test?
before we next a new method or new function, we can write some tests. We can write a lot of tests. Then we can follow the test and make the method.
Yeah, that's quite cool. So Fu is saying, before we write some method, we could write the test and expect it to work somehow, but it will fail, right? Then you write the code and the test will pass. This is the best way to take advantage of the fast test code practice. It can, yeah, right. But you may create a method called full name on the user model, and you don't have the full name. You write the test first because you know exactly what it should be, and then after that you write the code.
When I make the test file,
Uh-huh.
so I show the test file to the client. For example, comment out to show you that the test file and make it pass.
If a test fail, you try to make it pass, and then you commit. Show to the client. What do you mean?
Because everybody want to test file, so they want to make a test file first, and after that,
If you write a test fail, so you can fix it yourself here. Of course, you can write some pending tests, the yellow ones, and then you tell your friends, say, hey, go do them. It's between developers, nothing to do. I don't know if you say client means users or not. Louis, would you give me a reason why you want to test your code?
I think the same. You can try first before you
Yeah, it gives you the most fun.
find your code.
If you guys can start learning how to write some tests first and then make it pass, it's quite fun. All right, Stan, any reason why you want to
I
test?
see it as an efficiency, being able to, instead of having, if you're, right now we're doing pretty basic stuff.
Yeah.
So we can use the server to make sure our code is actually being ran properly or actually functions properly. I guess this way you can kind of, when you do have bigger projects that you're working on, it saves you time from having to go back and forth.
Efficiency.
Keep
So
things flowing.
it tests now, how you seed the database, you test the friendship. That's not, it could be pretty tricky. Oh, that's interesting. It's good. And then if you have to test, it does all that setup. Sometimes you come back to your code, a month later, you don't know how to, add this user, add this friendship to test that friendship. But the test code has everything. When you read it, you understand. When you run it, you can check if it works. Oscar, any extra reason?
When you refactor code, so when you, let's say I want to go in and I want to clean up like the sign-up process because my code there is pretty ugly. So I can, if I have the tester, like before I go in, I have the test, it works, and then I clean it up and, I can check if I didn't mess up after like cleaning up the code.
Do you guys understand this point? It means that you can write something that works, but the code may be really ugly. Then you write the test, and then it passes. Okay? Now you say, I'm going to make my code run either faster or the code is cleaner. You just go and change. But now you can be very confident. When do you stop changing? When you change, the test will fail. When do you stop changing? You just change, and then test pass again. Now you have the confidence. Now you make another change, something else, and it failed. And you're like, okay, good. Then I change this part, it passed again. If you don't have this, changing your code, upgrading from A to B, try to make it faster is very hard. In a real world app, you should always try to test your code before you change some big method, right?
When we get a new feature
Mm.
for our app, if we don't have the step before, they will have the order you must to
Yeah.
learn feature.
Cool. Exactly. So thanks, guys. You have a few reasons there. There are just a lot of reasons to test. I just write some quick points here. Protect against regression. Regression is the word. It means it works now, but next time it doesn't work. So that's sort of regression. So you hear that in software a lot. This is like Windows Vista, right? Something is working, and then you upgrade Windows, and something stopped working. Like open the File Explorer, play a movie file. This doesn't happen because Windows has billions of these regression tests just to make sure that the upgrade process works smoothly. Refactor is what Oscar just said. When you already have a test how a method should behave, you can change whatever you want in the content, right? As long as when you finish changing, different test cases, they still work. One method should have a lot of test cases. For a user, if I have a full name method, right? I want to test, when the person only have a first name, no last name, it should still work. I want to test if this person has first name, middle name, last name, it still work, etc. And this is also cool, is like it helps you think of the interface. So the test here is driving the change. So it's like a client, really. It's like instead of the client testing it, you just write, just pretend my test code is my client, right? And You have the model and the controller. They talk to each other. So the test help them interact. Okay, when do we test? This is something that most people actually don't really have a good answer. Because they're like, well, you should test all the time. And then you're like, well, I don't have time, I don't know how to, my test is not good enough, there are bugs in my test. You know, the whole point of writing a test is to prevent bugs, but then you start writing a lot of bugs in your test. So should you write tests for your test? Maybe, right? So it's very careful to think that way, right? So now, when a few things is short and simple, try to write tests. You know, validating your password. It's a good thing to keep writing. It's nice. It's a good feeling. You have one written test. When you have a user model and then there's a first name column and a last name column, and you want to test the first name, last name, well, you want to test the full name method, write a test for it. Okay? It's cool when you actually don't know what it's going to look like, you know, oh, the form, you know, maybe I have password confirmation, maybe I don't. Maybe I call this username, maybe I call it name. Maybe don't test it yet. It's okay. You just play around until you kind of have an idea. Now, you don't want a user to become an admin in your app, right? So maybe you write a test that says a user go to a form and try to be an admin. And then you write that test and you make sure it fails. You write the test first. And you make sure it still always fails. Your code should be clever. It will make sure you have the params.require user.permit. You don't want the user to be able to change something crazy. Maybe you don't want the user to change their email address because you don't want them to pretend to be someone else. Just make sure that one is only created once. Some systems like that. Oh, you want to create another account with another email? No problem. Does Gmail let you change your email address into something else? No, never. You create one, the account is there. So they are for sure they have, under you edit the account, they have a test that prevent you from changing the email address in your Gmail account. Some, you know, stuff like that, right? And it's like sometimes here, if you write a website that is a shopping website, okay, and you give 50% discount if the user buy 5 items, okay, this is something that's very good to write test for first. If the user has bought 5 items, the 6th item should be 50% discount. Can you believe you don't write test for this? You write the method to say discounted price, right? 50%. How do you test it? You go to the Rails console, user.find, and then user.items, you know, add item to cart, user.add item to cart, user.add item to cart. You keep trying it again. It's hard. And later, it's easy to be wrong. So write this test. Not just there. If the user buy the 6 items, you should give 30% discount for the 7th item. Who can remember this? No way you can go to Rails console and you can remember all this logic. If the user buy the 8th item, give the user another 20%. This logic now is so difficult, it has to be in your test. If you write an application that handles these different cases, you don't have it in the test, something is really wrong. Someone just go in there and change a number and your whole code is wrong and you have no idea why. Does it make sense? There's a bit of a logic that is complicated logic. Huh?
Usually when I develop an app, usually develop a businessman. Half the best come from a businessman.
Half of the test, exactly. So sometimes what the business person tells you, you write that into a test, and then after that you implement that.
But does it make sense if I create a test for the businessman because I work for him? Like,
Yeah.
so it ties up, save my time, save my.
So if you write tests like that, you can also look. I write tests for you too. You should pay me for the time I write tests so you can bill more. That's how a lot of software agency, they write really good tests. They pair program, they write good tests first. Make sure the user see, oh, like these documentations, does it look good for you? Yes. All right. By the way, this is already $100,000. All right, I'm gonna go and write some code. Yeah. If you only write code to make it work because you're lazy, you just go in there and just try to build something. Then later on, no changes to this. And I change, and then they come back. No, you broke something. That's not good because we don't. So this is why RSpec is very popular, because it helps you write things in an English way, and it's easy to share with the client. Okay, so a lot of theory. I'm sorry. So let's look at some tests here. By now, you probably can add some tests like this for each model. You can add can create a friendship, can create a user. Some is cool like this, where maybe validation that you cannot have a message that is a sender and recipient is the same thing. You see, this is an excellent candidate for your test. How do you write this test? Something like this. In your code, let's pretend I'm writing this test, right? You have some code like this. This is your file is spec file folder, models folder, message spec.rb. Is that right? And in here, maybe I have the structure like this. I have RSpec describe the message class. It's a model type. It'll look like this. My test here will be it, right? Does not, cannot allow sender and recipient to be the same. All right? So it'll look like this in your RSpec code. Does that make sense to you guys? Now, if you see it and something, that's a pending test. And then it will display as yellow, so it's quite nice. So you can write a lot of it tests here. Another test, right? But I'm implementing this test. So this will be do and. And bear with me, it's almost over. In this way, I'm just trying to write the test dry like this. I create a message, right? I first get a sender user, which is create a user. Maybe name is Adam, email is adam@example.com. The user is created. Now, if you create a message from sender user to recipient user,
would I now use the before method for user?
You could if you reuse it across a lot of tests. Now you can test your expect thing. Okay? Expect message.valid to be false, right? So expect message dot to not be valid. And you can do more on the error messages. That's the idea. So I want you to think, to feel comfortable that maybe I can try to write it dry, just like that. It takes time to get to the level you really feel comfortable. But go to your project and you can start writing tests for, any specific case like this.
Just later when you send me a message.
You want to send yourself a message.
But there's a lot of cases I can use it. You can send me links.
Yeah, no, exactly. It depends on the requirement of the app. Maybe if you're an admin, you can send it to yourself. If you allow your users to send it to yourself, and then after your app is live and then you see that you have 1 million users, they only send messages to themselves and you don't really have a social network. I'll be like writing on it.
I do send myself messages on Facebook to pieces of information.
Yeah, you send yourself messages on Slack to say,
So you have a phone number, you can talk yourself.
I mean, we are programmers. We like to send ourselves messages. Not everyone, is this the key, All right.
My friends at Part3.
Yeah, no, so today was to get an idea of the test. And this week, the assignment, you also need to have tests in there. But think about this, your goal is every week, but pretty much when you work in any Ruby project, it's so easy to set up RSpec. Why not? It's so easy to write a few model tests. Why not? And when you work in a team, a real software team, when you make a pull request, hey, I implement the feature for a user to send a message to himself. Then add one test to show that it works. Add another test to prevent, right, something else. Send a user from sending an empty message. So everything starts with a little thing, and one of the reasons people love working with Ruby is because it's easier to learn how to write tests. Good luck doing that with, Java, PHP. It's a little harder to set up. Yeah, it's just really long, slow. Global, yeah, it's harder to write, right? Can you see how easy, how it reads like English now? Over there, I'm sure it's more likely to have bugs in your Kobo, bugs in your test. Did you write tests for your test? All right, let's take a little break and then continue with the milestone.